On this episode of Star Trek Universe, the Breen are finally seen. We're talking all about Star Trek Discovery 505, Mirrors, right after these words from our mystery sponsors. Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on two lifelong friends sit and chat about Star Trek. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Roberson.
So, I don't know about you, man. I've been seeing the Breen all season. I've been knowing all what they look like.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That L'ak fellow.
Yeah.
L'ak.
We just didn't know it.
I know. It was neat, though. It was kind of a cool way to introduce, like, a mystery that we've had for a long time on Star Trek. What did the Breen look like? And it's just kind of cool to be like, oh, yeah, you've been watching them all season. You just didn't know it. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I like interesting ways to introduce things like that.
Yeah, I thought I was fine with it. Like, part of me, kind of went, I kind of didn't need to know.
Yeah, I hear that. But I think, like, because it wasn't really couched as a reveal, and instead it's a character we know, we just find out he's bringing it, it's sort of like, I don't know. It worked for me.
Yeah, I liked their backstory.
Yeah. Of course, do we know they're all the same species?
Yeah.
The Breen?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it. Like they were...
We only saw two, and the other one was his
uncle.
So see, this is me just in this podcast, in this moment, second guessing, but like, what he kept saying, like, this is the face. This is our face. Like they talked about the mask being their face. And
no.
Oh, explain.
What had happened was, when like the weird gelatinous green form when their helmet first comes off, that's their true evolved form, according to the uncle, and according to what the Breen believe. Like that's why they wear the refrigeration suits, so they can keep that form, because they feel like that form is more proper and more evolved. And by like solidifying and holding that form, you're losing focus and you're losing a part of yourself.
Interesting.
But like L'ak was saying, like, no, both of these forms are part of us.
Yeah.
And should be embraced.
Okay. I was curious about that when they were talking about the different faces, and I thought they meant, like, because they never show their face, it seems, at least on Star Trek up till now, I thought they were saying, like, them inside the suits is, like, some sort of, like, kind of like, if you haven't watched The Mandalorian, right?
I've seen parts of it.
There's just that whole thing of, like, they never take their helmets off, right?
Yeah.
Like, the helmet is who they are, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I kind of was thinking it was something akin to that.
Well, I don't know if they intended this, but, in DS9, I believe it said the Breen don't bleed.
Interesting.
But, like, maybe that's just when they're in their refrigeration suits, because L'ak bled like a stuck pig, dude.
Right. Yeah. Maybe that gelatinous form holds together a little better.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I thought this episode was a lot of fun. I mean, I feel like we're kind of bearing the lead with not talking about the ISS Enterprise.
Oh, is that the lead?
Yeah, that's definitely the lead.
Is
We found out where the original Enterprise, the one that we first meet the Mirror Universe, ends up, being a rogue ship. Like, we get this storyline that we never got. Like, Spock leads people to, like, rebel, and, like, Saru apparently joined them, and, like, that's just real cool. I like it a lot.
Well, I mean, the Kelpian slaves, Saru, previously in Discovery, had been inspired.
Yeah. So I think it's neat that character, Mirror Saru, ended up with Mirror Spock's crew, like, on the ISS Enterprise, like, taking off. I just thought it was neat.
I assume the Emperor that they were talking about, who got killed for making all the reforms, was Spock. So he was no longer part of the crew.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I need to, like, it was neat. It was a neat way of telling the story and giving us this cool background of what happens in the Mirror Universe to this ship, even though, And the fact that whole crew ended up in, I kind of thought it might be also a nice like backdoor way of introducing some of those characters in the timeline in the future. We talk about Section 31 show and all this stuff. Like, I forget the name of the crewman that they talk about. They talked about some crewman and how she had like left.
Dr. Cho, she became a rank admiral in the 24th century.
Yeah. So I'm like, what if in like a Section 31 show we meet? Because it just seems like she also went underground into secret because she was hiding about this whole secret to the progenitors. But like, what if there was also some tie into Section 31 in there?
Yeah, I mean it seems like they might be setting something up there, but they said that the crew of the Enterprise wound up escaping, and they became like they're all in the Federation database. Some of them became Starfleet officers. She became a branch admiral, is what they said, and I think all that's neat. There's definitely a lot of room to bring people in somewhere.
Yeah, they really could be anywhere because that ship could have come across to a different time or anything like that. It could be anywhere in the time stream or whatever that they came over. So, yeah. Well, I guess that one lady is the 24th century. So it has to be before that.
Yeah, because she was part of the scientists who figured out the progenitor stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand it correctly, they all came into sometime in the mid to late 24th century, and by the end of the 24th century, Dr. Cho was a branch admiral and was working with the scientists. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. I just like I really like. I often talk about how like an episode of a thing or a piece of a canon like uses up parts of the canon, and I think showing us where the ISS Enterprise ended up is like, it kind of like closes that door to some degree. Like, it shows, but they also introduce this whole new idea that somewhere in the prime timeline, there's just like possible mirror universe people, hanging out.
Yeah.
We might have encountered them and not even known it up till now, It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I have never once ever in my entire tenure as a Star Trek fan, to my knowledge, unless you guys can go back and find a clip of me saying so, I have never wondered whatever happened to the ISS Enterprise. What I have wondered, though, is what happened to that device that Kirk told Mirror Spock about. He said, in this universe's Kirk's quarters, you'll find a device that'll help you defeat any enemy. So he had like this mysterious alien device that he could open the thing and just like watch through a view screen anybody on the ship, and he could just like hit a button and eliminate them. They would just cease to exist. And it was like a huge story point in the Judith and Garfield Reeve Stevens, William Shatner books, where we found out what Emperor Tiberius did and what Spock did with that device. And
yeah.
I want to know in the actual show.
Yeah, like in the actual canon. Well, and that's why they get to do stuff like that in the books. It's like a piece of canon they will unlikely ever touch.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, if whatever they're looking for, if like Mirror Kirk got that from the progenitors, that would be interesting.
Oh yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Like that would, I guess Emperor Spock may have just been very surprised and not known he had to like eliminate certain enemies. But I'm like, man, how did he get killed with that device?
Oh yeah,
because that's how like Mirror Kirk was rising through the ranks.
Well, it's also like a paranoia thing too. Like you're constantly watching around you. That's the whole idea behind that device. Is he's like, it's a world where they're like bred and raised to be paranoid and like fight everyone around them. And maybe if Mirror Spock like sort of got past that, maybe he got complacent.
Yeah. I have questions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's also it is also a bummer that he was murdered but it also we know that on into DS9 there's still like there's still there's still the dark timeline. It's not like he fixed everything.
Oh yeah, and it's diverged so much now. I think they said back in the episodes with George O, they said that it had diverged so much that they could no longer pass between universes.
Wait, with George O?
Yeah.
Which episode? Sorry.
After they were in the 32nd century.
Oh, I see.
She couldn't go back to the mirror universe because they couldn't pass over anymore.
Oh, gotcha.
Because the timelines had diverged too much.
Right. But she got to go back to the Guardian.
Well, she got to go back somewhere in the prime timeline through
right.
the Guardian.
Yeah, somewhere. Back. I just mean back in time, I guess. I assume. That's a real dark horse thing. Like, what if is the Section 31 show set in the 41st century? We need more time periods, man.
No.
Listen, I've never said the opposite on this show. You may be able to go back and find me saying the opposite, but I think I've been pretty clear. I love lots of time periods being told in a way that, like, just really hard to even know what time you're in, you know?
Yeah.
I've always stood on that.
Yeah. I'm really tired right now, so I'm pretty sure that's not true. But yeah, we don't know what timeline the time frame the Section 31 show is happening in.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and the way they left it, she could go anywhere.
Yeah.
And we keep saying show, but yeah, it's
a movie. It's a movie now.
Movie. Okay. So I enjoyed all the mirror universe stuff and just like the connection to all that and finding out. It was just cool storytelling.
Yeah.
But we also obviously had stuff going on in this storyline. We found out the history of Moll and L'ak. We found out what their love story, how it began. Mm-hmm. What did you think? I
was fine with it. I liked that. I really enjoyed learning more about the Breen and seeing kind of. I thought it was interesting that like we were getting more backstory, you know, and they were painting them in a way that they were sympathetic. So I do think that at this point, I think Moll will wind up becoming a good guy, and L'ak will wind up sacrificing himself for her in some capacity.
That's possible.
That's my guess.
I don't know. He's already so injured that I feel like, you know what I mean? Like it's tough to like have him be so injured in this episode, then bring him back just to sacrifice him a few episodes later. It's possible.
Or maybe he will, be one of the keys to unlocking some bullshit with the progenitor tech, but it'll be because he was using his solidified form instead of his bullshit refrigerator form.
I was wondering about that.
And will prove to his pissy uncle.
Right. I was wondering, or the opposite. I was wondering if like they get to the, we've talked about like if they get to the progenitor tech and they have to prove themselves, prove they're like, they've achieved a level where they're like worthy of this technology. If they got there and it like they have, because the people who created this trap, this maze, they're from centuries ago, but they were still part of this universe and kind of knew the players in it. Mm-hmm. So it'd be really interesting if they're like, okay, to come together, you need a member of all these different species, you know what I mean? Like a member of these different, I don't know, all four quadrants or all like certain types of branches of the humanoid form, Yeah. And like maybe they specifically knew that the Breen were an issue, like a few centuries ago, and they were like, we needed to get past this war. It was the Dominion War after all. Maybe they're stuck in the Dominion War. Maybe they need like someone from each faction of the Dominion War, like to come together to receive the like technology.
Yeah, but the progenitors wouldn't have known about that.
Well, no, but the people who hit it did.
Oh, right.
So like
part of their puzzle. Yeah.
But at the end of their puzzle, like the last thing is like, yeah, you can only get this if you're working together as all the species working together.
Right.
And he could be the member of the Breen that would be part of that.
Mm-hmm. It's like a really obvious hazing ritual.
What?
Or like a fraternity or something.
I mean, I know what a hazing ritual is. I just don't know what you mean.
Like, you have to crawl around and spit water into the fire and you can't stop until the fire's extinguished. And then eventually one of you realizes, oh shit, this is about brotherhood. We all have to spit our water into the fire at the same time.
Exactly. All right, now I'm tracking the metaphor. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. And yes, that is specifically from Revenge of the Nerds 3, The Next Generation.
Yeah. Dave, what? I thought you had a whole fraternity life that I didn't know about.
Yeah, no.
You seem like such a fraternity guy.
No, I refuse to pay for friends. I always stood very stalwart on that hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd rather be lonely and angry, but I will not pay for friends.
Yeah. I have my principles. If I don't have my principles, I have nothing.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
I enjoyed the Moll and L'ak romance okay. I kind of wish they had given us a little more. Or
graphic nudity?
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Just
I want to see that brain dick.
I know, right?
Yeah, not what you expected me to want to see.
That's exactly what I was expecting you to say.
Give me a bit of that breeness, if you will.
All right, you got it back. With breeness. But yeah, I really I liked their love story.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there was something about it it was truncated, of course, it's one episode. But I guess part of it is that I kind of wish here's how I would rewrite this if I were them.
Mm-hmm.
I would make at least they have to have she has to have a bringing officer. During a wartime, they had to schedule a bringing officer with her on her ship when she's on the runs to pick up some dilithium or whatever. You know what I mean? It just seemed how can you get past being enemies, fall in love, all that stuff in these little I don't know, what seems 30-minute encounters at the dock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I assumed there was more time that they were spending together off and on, but...
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Maybe they do that. Maybe they say, oh, and then they got away together. Or but even that, it just feels like a leap to be any kind of buds or friends, friendly, and then turn to love. It just didn't seem like the steps were all there.
Yeah, and my question was even in our day and age, you wouldn't be able to get around it. How they in the future and they're making out behind some crates and ain't no cameras picking it up.
Well, they had a invisibility shield.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just didn't even notice that.
Yeah, they did a camera thing where they showed an empty space, and then they went through the sort of a warbly Wakanda-esque, invisibility shield.
Oh yeah, I do remember.
And they were in there, and then the uncle came over. But also that was the thing. The uncle came over, and there was a clear device projecting it that had lights on it and stuff.
Uh-huh.
If you're gonna create a device that projects an invisibility shield, the device should be on the inside of the invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
So
no wonder Unc had suspicions.
Yeah, it's a big light up thing saying, "Hey, something's invisible here." But they did a good job of making them, making you care for them, making you care for Locke specifically. I feel with his desire to be free, but his desire not to hurt his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And he shoots him in the shoulder, and she's like, "Why didn't you kill him?" And he's like, "He raised me." I don't know. It just gives them a lot more moral complexity, and I've seen that through the entire season that they seem a little bit. They're just trying to get free of something, and this now we learn. I forget what the name of the thing is called. That the brain.
Iraq or Iraq
or
something
like that.
Yeah.
Some sort of like
Iraq.
Something. I don't know. They have an Iraq.
Yeah. It was like a blood bounty or some shit.
Yeah, the blood bounty. Whatever term they use in the Breen language. So anyway, I dug it. I thought it was fun. And I'm like, I feel like where we go from here will be like a little less antagonistic. Like clearly they've made a little bit of inroads with them.
Yeah.
Both directions.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know why, but it did really like, okay. So I got this show, man. This show, I am like trying to tell you how much I enjoyed a moment, but then there's always something weird in there that like just like gets at me. You know what I mean? Like It makes me feel like, well, it's good, but there's that. It just, every time I like a thing, I always have, there's something in the middle of it that I'm like, but, and I was going to say, I really like the scene where they come through and Raynor's like helping, like Raynor learning to like work collaboratively, you know, that whole scene was actually really effective. I think more effective than any of the other scenes we've seen of Raynor trying to like learn his lesson, you know?
Yeah, he's bribing them with some kind of citric.
Yeah. It's like whatever, some sort of ale or something.
Yeah, something.
And that scene was great. I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun. And then like when they finally figured it out and he's like, they're flying out of the thing on the Enterprise. Like it was all very fun and cool. But then like, I started thinking about how much I hated that she used an obscure stanza from a book that Raynor had, like from Raynor's culture.
Yeah.
Instead of like anything that your friends that you've known for so long would understand. Like there's clearly like, I mean, it just seems like you'd have like a way to encode a message. We have SOS like smoke signals and stuff now, you know? Like it just seems like relying on like some Morse code saying it's you. You know what I mean? Like just anything but 3433 or whatever, and he's like, from that stanza of that poem from my people. I don't know, it just like it did not I did not like it. I thought that was dumb.
Yeah, it was dumb in the way that TV shows are dumb, generally.
Yeah. Well, it's dumb in this like sort of short-sighted way where it's like, this is important for the character moment we want this episode, but doesn't really make any sense in the broad text of the show. Mm-hmm. You know, and I know that happens all the time on these kinds of shows, but like, I just feel like Discovery is particularly... it's like I love this show in some ways, and there's these little things that just get at me, that annoy me. Yeah. And they like infest the things I like about the show.
Yeah. Like for me, this episode, I'm pretty sure that was like, there was a bit where like they took great pains to talk about how they didn't have a shuttle. There were no shuttles, no escape pods on the Enterprise. And then there's like a scene where we see the shuttle fly away, and Book is like, "Oh, that was our one shot to leave. That was our only way out." And I don't remember what that was, because then later there was another shuttle that like left the Enterprise and bolted away. Like Moll and L'ak's ship was decrepit. It didn't work anymore.
Yeah, it had been destroyed.
So what in the hell did they use to fly away on?
I don't know.
Because
I don't remember the line about having no shuttles.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I remember they talking about like all the different escape pods are gone.
Because there was the shuttle that Michael and Book came over on. And then that was gone. Mm-hmm. And there was like a big dramatic thing where Book's like, "That was our way out."
Yeah.
You know. And then
perfect accent. Perfect
I know.
Book.
And then at the end, Moll and L'ak, you know, have a different shuttle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like where are all these shuttles coming from?
And she's like, you know, "Raynor, get it." And he's like, "I'm on it." And then like immediately he's like, "Damn, missed it." like it's in the same sentence. Yeah. Like, oh, that was stupid. But where did they get that shuttle anyway? Like, what am I missing?
I don't know. I have to go back. Hopefully, yeah, I don't know. You may have found a plot hole, or we might be just have heard something wrong. I remember them saying something. I don't think they called it a shuttle, though. They called it something else. I don't know what they're... But it still seems like that would be a thing you'd look for to fly away on.
That'd still be their way out.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know what that was about. And I liked this episode okay, but I didn't like it enough to rewatch it.
Yeah, we're recording this in the same room, which we don't normally do. It's very rare. Very rare that we get to be in the same room to record these. I always like doing it. But yeah, you got here and I was like, "You want to rewatch it just to, get it back in our brains?" And you were like, "No." I was like, "Oh."
I'm like, okay. I feel it in my soul. I do not want to watch this again. Like, I need time. I need time away.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of it was just, your standard pew pew. We're gonna try to get them to understand a thing, and they're not gonna understand a thing, and for no reason other than we need an action beat here.
I feel like I disagree. I feel like they have set the story up in a way that is very the characters make sense. All the characters make sense. Obviously Burnham is there because she wants to save the universe from the progenitor tech. She wants to get the tech for the Federation. And Moll and L'ak are both trying to get this bounty off their head, and they don't trust the Federation. They have no reason to. And then Book is there for both reasons, the progenitor tech, but mostly I feel like he's there for Moll and trying to connect with her or whatever. Like the whole, I don't know. I feel like all four characters in this make a lot of sense, and they have their reasons to be very distrusting of each other. Even our protagonists are like, yeah, they want to make inroads with these people, but these people could absolutely just murder them. You know what I mean? Like we've seen them do it, and I don't think they'd even hesitate to murder either one of them. You know what I mean? They tried, with the bug.
Yeah, I'm struggling this season. I'll be honest.
Oh yeah,
it's just it feels like it should be like a 2 to 3 hour movie, and they are just stretching it out. And I felt like this was so much just save the cat bullshit in an overarching story.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the criticism of Discovery in general. We've talked about a bunch, but the fact they're so dead set on always making it a very connected arc every season just kind of makes the whole season feel like, it's like you're waiting. It's like you're waiting on the actual things to happen. Yeah. We're waiting for them to put all the puzzle pieces together. Even if we really enjoy the episode on one level, it doesn't feel like a meal. And that's just what you got to know about Discovery, is it doesn't feel like a meal.
I think the Discovery holds up better once the entire season is out and you can binge it.
Right. I think that's true. But then you still deal with that issue of this feels like a good 2-hour movie and it's going to be 8 hours.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have a problem with this season. But it is, I get it. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. I've just liked this season more than I did last season.
Uh-huh.
I feel like I should be a little more intrigued because it's the progenitors, but they're just not dealing with the progenitors very much. Just all this puzzle leading up to it. Yeah.
Well, I agree. And I think, it's similar to what we had last season with DMA, where it's like you're dealing with the repercussions of what's happening in the universe and DMA. And then the episode got really interesting when they actually, or the last 2 episodes got really interesting when they actually dealt with the creatures outside of, regular space, which I think that's the thing, is I think you just feel this type of storytelling. Yeah, it doesn't really have anything to do with Discovery. It's just they've chosen this type of storytelling that always feels like it's leading somewhere, and only once a season it lands the plane, and that's just, it's just not, I don't know. It doesn't, even if I like all the stuff going on, even if I enjoy all the characters, I never feel fed by the show, which is really unfortunate.
Yep.
I won't say never. there are definitely episodes I felt fed by the show. There's some really great Mirror Universe stuff in that first season that I love.
Oh yeah, that is true.
There's some great Georgiou stuff. I love the Guardian episode where she gets to take off. I don't know. There's some really great stuff. One of my favorite episodes is like season 3 when she like actually wakes up in the 31st century and it's like just her and Book. You know what I mean? Like that was a great episode. There's some wonderful episodes of Discovery, but they're always the ones that feel they're still a piece of the whole, but they feel like this episode is an experience. I love the episode where we find about Saru's background, Yes. Great episode.
That was a great episode. I'll agree with you. Well, one of the things that I liked was that he kind of juxtaposed finding out about Moll and L'ak's history and how they became a couple with like Michael and Book kind of coming back together a little.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think they are constantly kind of shoving it in Michael's face. There's a moment in this episode where she's one of the either Moll or L'ak is like, no, if we can't be together, we don't want to live. You know what I mean? Like, us being together is the only thing that's important to us in the universe. We'll literally just burn the universe down by handing over this progenitor tech to the Breen if it means we get to be together. And it's like, and Michael looks like, you're a madman, but also, ooh, I wish I had that love. You know what I mean? Like that love sounds real good, and the man I want to have it with is right there. But situations have let us pushed us apart. We have allowed situations to push us apart. Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that is like driving her a little crazy in the season, where she's just like watching these characters that love each other so much. They're doing crazy things, but they get to have love. You know what I mean?
Right. But is that kind of love worth it if you're willing to throw out your responsibilities?
Right. Is it? I don't think that's a clear question.
Yeah.
Like and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it interesting. Obviously, ethically, I'm on Michael's side, but like, if that's your life, if you choose to live a life and be lonely forever because your responsibility is keeping you away from the person that you love, experientially, that's a tough life. And she's jealous. And I think that's a great juxtaposition. I agree with you.
Yeah. Until this episode, I don't think I noticed that there were lessons, the clues necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I'd paid attention to it.
Yeah, I think they were definitely like, hey, if you've missed this so far, there've been some lessons going on. Yeah,
and Michael just flat out like brings it up and starts talking about it, and that was funny to me because I had just not paid any attention to it. Like, I hadn't really. I get lost in the whispering and the quiet. I'm ADHD, man. I get like real distracted.
Yeah. Yeah, I had noticed that. I definitely noticed that they are putting the people looking for the clues through trials.
Yeah,
and that's why I've been
clearly
talking about
there was the trials, but like
right. But the trial was
the lesson. Yeah,
how good. Well, it's not even the lesson. It's like what kind of person are you?
Right.
Like, are you the kind of person who knows this lesson?
Right. Well, like I think I recognize that, especially specifically the first one with Janal, when they are like they have to respect the other kind of creature that's not them, and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like what she's talking about with like the importance of cultural context on the Necropolis planet, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree with that. That one was a little like bit of a stretch. And also like, is that what they're saying, or are they just making a hard puzzle? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if, and the importance of cultural context, like that is part of like that story. The importance of cultural context is like, yes, that's important, but also the whole idea is like, there are also ethics that we have to like live up to. And I don't know, like cultural context thing was a little funny.
Yeah, especially since like she brought up like what you were talking about, where she brought up that code from that book of Rayner's from his culture. And we had that bit earlier where he's talking about boiling a cake, and they're like, "Why would you boil a cake or whatever?" Like that's something they're definitely playing with this season, apparently. But
yeah, well, at least this episode, because it was like, yeah, it just feels forced.
Not to mention all the brain stuff,
right? Well, that whole thing, I mentioned it before, but the whole beam saying 3433 or whatever, like that whole thing just feels forced. It feels like they needed to have some sort of little tie-in from Rayner to Burnham to show that she cares, whatever. But it just felt a little forced.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
The one thing if it was like she knows, like, let's say Rayner's on a shuttle out there by himself or something like that, and they have to do it, and she has to communicate with Rayner specifically. But if you're sending a message to your crew, it's like, why are you narrowing it to Rayner, and why are you narrowing it to a reference to his culture that he may not think of that context, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you can even make a reference to Catcher in the Rye, which is one of my favorite books. I will not catch. I'll be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So
I'm not a serial killer. It's just one of my favorite books.
Not much of one anyway.
Yeah.
He is, but he's way too lazy to do it.
Yeah. Well, I get distracted.
He's too lazy and distractible to follow through with it.
And for whatever reason, there aren't deadlines for it, so I don't ever like just have like a late night cram session.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. You got to create your own deadlines.
Yeah, I know. I'm just not very good at that. By the way, what would a cram session for a serial killer look like? Would it be like a literal cramming?
Oh, I see what you did there. So, in this episode, I really thought they were going to go with. I thought we were going to like meet someone from the
Enterprise
mirror universe, like when they had all those,
aka the Minterprise.
That's right. The mirror Enterprise. Anyway, when they walked in there and there were all those beds and stuff inside the transporters.
Okay,
I thought they might have like stored someone in a transporter buffer or something, which we know they've done on the Prime Enterprise to keep the little girl alive, and like we've seen it done obviously in Relics or whatever. So, like I thought that's what they were gonna do. And then, like, maybe we meet someone from the alternate universe who has the clue or something. You know what I mean? Like, I thought we were going with something like that, especially since they clearly used the set from Strange New Worlds that they're filming on.
Oh, yeah.
To film this. I thought, maybe we're going to get maybe we'll see Mirror Spock, you know?
Right.
He's still young, but then he was dead. And I don't know. It's just a whole thing. I really thought we were going to get more from it. Or maybe Cho was still alive in the pattern buffer or something, you know? Like, I don't know. I thought something. I thought we were going to see something more.
I did not think we were going to see anybody, but I will say that watching Michael tearfully look at Spock's console is quite honestly just. My brain went blank.
I literally don't know where you're going. Like, I don't know which way you're going to go on this. I feel like you're going negative because of your tone of voice. But it's still unclear because, like, I could see you in a certain mood loving that moment because it's Spock. It's his console.
Yeah.
And I could see you in another mood being like, this is Discovery bullshit. Like emotional,
well, it's
like
not
overly.
Like Discovery bullshit. It's just.
And I don't mean Discovery bullshit as in Discovery is bullshit. I mean, like, this is the kind of bullshit they get up to that annoys me, you know?
Well, you know, it was fine as far as like the emotional moment because I felt it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, no, this is what they're doing instead of showing us Ethan Peck with a goatee. Like that's really what I wanted.
Yeah, that's what I wanted too. It really is. I was like, man, get me Ethan Peck with a goatee right now.
I mean, you know, and dude, that's also
age him up a little, you know, like, oh yeah.
Did you catch the hologram thing?
I don't think so.
There's a little line of dialogue where Book mentions like there are no holograms on this Enterprise either. No hollow emitters on this Enterprise.
That's
either,
really funny.
Like that.
That's really funny.
And I was like, come on, man. Give me like a Tasha Yar hologram of, fucking Mirror Spock for a second.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. You still got some feedback? Is that right?
I do have feedback, but did you see that somebody online actually transcribed what was on that plaque, the actual words that were on the ISS Enterprise plaque?
Please.
It said, "The new High Chancellor presented hope and justice as if they were natural to our world. His words, the light of hope shines through even the darkest of nights, became our rallying cry. He spoke of reform and changed many of us, but some saw this as weakness. They killed him, and we sought help from an unlikely ally, a Kelpian slave turned rebel leader. He spoke of visitors from another world, a near-perfect mirror that casts our darkness into light. With his aid, we secured the Enterprise, but he stayed behind to continue his work. We bear scars from our escape, but our hope remains. May it carry us into a shining, peaceful, and just future."
That's cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I liked that.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Really well written and really fun.
My favorite line is the first one, where it's like, "The new High Chancellor presented hope and justice as if they were natural to our world."
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
It's really good. It's really, really good. Love it. And it does make me want more from those characters, what happened to them. I really would love to see where they are in the timeline or what's going on.
Yeah.
As I always say, give me more time periods.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. That's you sold me.
Yeah. I know you're normally reluctant and I'm normally
yeah,
give us all the time periods. Don't stop. More time periods.
Now I want a mini-series called Star Trek Shattered Mirrors.
Yeah.
That each episode does 2 or 3 people and shows us their lives.
Or one and it shows their entire life. You get the scope of their entire life in the prime timeline.
Yeah.
Be really fun.
I want to see how they deal with the trauma of growing up in the mirror universe and how they are not suitable for living in the prime timeline, and how they are doing specific things that set off alarms with other people.
And there'd be times when it it'd be Lorca all over again in a way, except Lorca was doing it as a plan, but they're trying to do better, but just little things are off about them, little things, they have impulses, their natural impulses are not what everyone over here's natural impulses are.
Yeah, I dig it.
That'd be fun.
So yeah, we do have feedback.
Yeah.
Now I'll start off with, because we've got 2 from Stu, kind of.
Ooh.
Because last week,
a stuo, if you will.
I was gonna say a Stuart Big, but
I don't get that
because he's got 2 feedback. So it's, instead of a Stuart Little, it's a Stuart Big.
Oh, yeah, man, I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, sorry.
I think it's because you said Stuart. You normally say Stu.
Yeah, I do.
So I was like, "Who's Stuart Big?" I thought that was a celebrity's name or something. I didn't know, some musician.
No. Anyway. So last week, Stu in his feedback said, "You realize how that's worse," to Michael Burnham, explaining she had nerve-pinched younger Michael. And we were like, no, the nerve pinch is a pacifistic defensive move.
Yeah.
And we both asked him to elaborate. To that, Stu said, "I mean, it was worse that Michael just said that she knocked out her younger self and didn't really elaborate that it was self-defense or anything."
Ah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I guess at that point they're "Where is she?" And she's like, "She's sleeping." It wasn't it wasn't they knew that beforehand that she was even passed out or whatever.
Yeah. So Stu also sends us an email titled, "It Isn't Easy Being Breen."
Stu, bring in the fire. Good job.
I know. Yeah. Stu says, Hey, Stu. I'm sorry. A couple of things to cover before my thoughts on this week's episode. Apologies for my extensive rambling. First of all, why would I be pissed off if someone else was made third host? Maybe you don't remember, Dave, but you offered me a co-host position in a Twitter DM convo a couple of years back, and I declined, beyond maybe being a potential fill-in if needed. And now, if they do a Scotty-centric Strange New Worlds episode. So not a big deal. Though I will point out, Matt, if I was a third co-host, your editing wouldn't be any more difficult, as Dave and I would share a mic, and we wouldn't be talking over each other.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah. And actually, I do remember that, Stu. I don't know how that has... Why would you be pissed off? You declined.
Well, no, you were saying he'd be pissed, so he's saying, why would he be pissed?
Oh,
that's what he said.
Oh, right.
You just repeated what he said.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Well, I didn't remember last week.
Yeah, I get it.
But now that he brings it up, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fine.
I remember you talking about it.
Right. Okay, so where are we at? Secondly, the whole issue I had with the Raynor thing last week is that I feel it's a microcosm of a main issue I have with Discovery ever since the ship came to the 32nd century. It's a brave new era for Star Trek in general, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity to shake up our characters and put them in situations where they had to accept they were out of their element like never before and would have to change to adapt to this time. But it just feels like the inverse has happened. The Discovery came to a post-burn universe where their ship not only had warp, but the spore drive, so they were by default already kind of the hot shit in terms of Starfleet vessels. They just lacked more modern defenses and personal transporters and such. That put them at the forefront of the mission, and it seems like the Federation of this era has to change to be like the Discovery. The new Federation is just an organization that is depicted as having to regain the feel of the old Federation, which the Discovery characters are seemingly always having to remind them of. And sometimes they have to go rogue and disobey direct orders for that, and it always turns out they were right to do so, regardless of the potential for them to be wrong, given how unfamiliar with their current setting that they should be compared to anyone else. Instead, it's just constant validation all the time for Discovery's judgment. I mean, I get it, but that's kind of always a thing in Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, I agree completely. I think that, it's the, original sort of problem with Star Trek is that you have to have forces for the crew to fight against. External forces are important, but you also need internal Federation squabbling. Mm-hmm. And of course, in a show, people generally want their protagonist to be right. They want to be fighting on the right side of things. I don't feel that way. Yeah. I like a more complex view of things. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, which is why we love DS9.
Exactly.
Why Star Trek 6 is our favorite.
Right. Exactly. The complications of the characters is, I think, what's most interesting. And so, yeah, I'm with Stu, but I think the problem is bigger than just blaming it on Discovery or calling it Discovery out for it is whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a Star Trek thing, I think, generally.
Yeah. So when a character like Raynor, who must have at least 20 years overall experience serving in Starfleet on Michael, and probably way more experience captaining than her, has to get told the right way to do things not only by her, but Tilly, who was an ensign who got promoted to first officer, it just rankles a bit as not being very believable, and a waste of potential of how Raynor definitely could have some points, and the sort of stuff he's had to deal with for the bulk of his career before Discovery came along to make things better could have been contextualized as a necessary thing to bear in mind. Yeah, but Raynor also is coming out of a war, and he's got a very specific warrior vibe, and they're trying to usher in this era of peace. But I think he's right, and he's been proven to be right. The Breen were coming.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think Strange New Worlds doesn't get complaints about its emotional content because overall it seems to stick to the traditional discipline and chain of command stuff when the characters are on duty far more, and being more episodic is free to not linger on the same personal issues from week to week so much.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big big issue, or the big like things there. It's just that it can move on and go to the next story, and Discovery feels like it needs to stay on the same topic.
Mm-hmm. He does point out Spock and Chapel stuff aside, though. He continues, in short, it compartmentalizes more the same way TNG let Picard have an emotional breakdown to his brother about the Borg while he was on leave, rather than have that emotional breakdown on the bridge during a crucial command moment and prompting Riker to come up and hug him, rather than gently suggest he relieve himself of command. You also said you theorized the message is more about the old generation having to change, and that made Rayner a boomer. But Rayner is literally the younger generation in this story, despite being physically older than Burnham. So I think that makes her the boomer, telling the people who are living in a world they partially created how they should be living. And that's my 17 cents on the matter. I mean, yes and no. I mean, he is the younger generation, but she's coming in fresh-faced from another time frame entirely, and he's been like dealing with this bullshit in this universe the way it is. That's the thing.
It's like, chronology aside, it's like about the fact that he's like an old curmudgeon guy who thinks things have to be done a certain way, and she's coming in with her ideas about like, you know, collaboration and equality amongst the crew, and like being an open person and all this stuff, and he's pushing back on it. That feels very much like and it's just that he comes from a world that was going through all this war and stuff, and now she's coming in, like you said, fresh, and it's just, I don't think the actual chronology has any impact on this. The sort of what the lesson is,
right? But they're very clearly making him right about a bunch of stuff.
Oh, so, see, I don't think that's true necessarily.
I mean, he was right about the Breen. He came in and saved Tilly and Adira's asses when they were trying to help Michael figure out that bullshit on the planet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's clearly competent.
Yeah.
But, I don't think I think they're constantly, and I think Stu's right, I think they kind of just constantly want the crew of Discovery to be in the right all the time. And
they do.
It is an issue for the show. And so, like, Rayner's different from them, so instead of like my favorite Star Trek is shows that like embrace the differences and everyone works differently, you know. And I feel like he's very different from them, and instead of like embracing it and using his uniqueness, they're like sort of like, yeah, you gotta get rid of that uniqueness, you gotta stop being that way, which maybe he does, maybe they're right. And I think to some degree you're right. When you're like holding on to a war footing when you're not at war anymore, it can be an issue. But I think
they have proven him to be right enough that it feels like, and he's bent toward their way as well. I think the point that they're making is, regardless of our differences, we need to be open enough to understand the context of other people's cultures and where they came from, and also be willing to meet them halfway and see their side of it in order to attain a goal.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, how well they're accomplishing that is, of course, up for debate, but I think they're definitely trying something with that.
Right.
All right, now he's getting to the episode, Mirrors. I know it looks cool, book, but do you have to wear your coat indoors so much? Aren't you a bit warm?
It might be very cold.
It might be very cold. It looks pretty sterile and frosty in there.
Might be about his planet and where how he relates, you know. It might be cold for him. That's what I guess I'm getting at.
I would assume it's pretty cold on the ship because all of them have to wear those thick ass tunics.
Yeah. And that's just to cover their nipples.
Mm-hmm.
Rock hard. Everyone's nipples.
Yep. So that's what happens when you get a female captain, everyone. They have to wear really thick tunics to cover up any possibility of nipple. Sorry, I'm just pretending to be.
I didn't say it had anything to do with the females.
I know.
I think it's all of everybody's nipples. I'm an equal opportunity nipplist. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about, man. It's getting late. What else does Stu have to say?
It is late. I'm sorry. I was trying to make fun of. I joined a Star Trek Discovery fan group on Facebook, and just like, it is just like one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life. Because apparently everyone who's like a right-wing asshole who hates Discovery for having a crying lady as a captain is on those, or they're commenting on that. No, why are you here?
Yeah, that's weird.
They're just trolling, man.
Right.
Let's see. Boom. Suggesting that Rayner has to have an underlying psychological reason to make the totally reasonable suggestion that the senior officer doesn't go into a dangerous unknown situation with only one other person is pretty much what I'm talking about.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Mirror Universe, the quote-unquote real Lorca returns. We never confirmed his death, just the mirror versions. Either that or Mirror Burnham is thawed out of cryogenic stasis with a Bride of Frankenstein haircut. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see that Enterprise again. I think it's gone.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Just because, like, the way they set up this episode with this mystery of where all those people ended up, I have a feeling we might end up going back and seeing, like, the beginnings of their story one day, maybe.
No, I don't think so. Well, that was kind of a weird Dr. Hibbert laugh.
That was a very Dr. Hibbert laugh.
That was not
I was doing the same thing.
Just like in the middle of it, I was just like, I know this laugh. Yeah, what would be wrong with boiling a cake? It'd certainly make it moist.
Yeah, I think for like baking a cake makes it kind of crispy on the outside, though.
Boiling it.
I know, but you miss the crispiness of the outside.
I don't miss it.
I do. Not crispy. Crispy isn't really what I'm talking about. Like, but a little bit of crust is, I feel like a lot of the flavors in that crust.
You know what it would be like? They have cups. They sell cups, and it has a powder, and you put the powder in the cup with some water and stick it in the microwave, and it makes cake in the microwave.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just mush.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it would be like.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Take a shot every time someone says, quote, clue in this episode if you want to die. The word clue.
All right.
I didn't notice it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a clue a lot this season because they're looking for clues.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what they've decided to settle on. They could have, like, called the items that they're collecting the clues. They could have called them something, I suppose. And then, whatever. Yeah.
The characters, it would be ridiculous if the characters stopped and looked through a thesaurus to see if they could find a different word for clue, just so Stu wouldn't be upset about it, though. Same for every time the episode does a slow Dutch angle zoom in / zoom out.
They do love to do that.
It's very Joel Schumacher. These flashbacks are cool, but Moll should really ease up on making L'ak's Bree feel funny in public like that. There, Dave, I finally dropped to your level with a penis or Breenus joke.
Oh, man, he got happy? To Breenus? Then you guys are definitely the same person.
We're not.
You're so the same person.
We're not. I will gladly take Moll and L'ak both turning good if we get the Breen at large as the antagonist this season in exchange. I mean, I thought that was what we were getting anyway.
Well, we have them as like this threat, this like existential threat, but they're not like, actually actively fighting the Breen. I mean, I know that Star Trek is often just about exploration and about these morality tales, and I love that. But my favorite Star Trek is still that, Dominion War seasons of Deep Space Nine. So, like, as much as I want them to deal with this exploration and do all this stuff, like, I could use a little war here and there,
Yeah, I mean, well, putting, you take in the pale moonlight, like putting...
Yeah, exactly.
Putting people in the middle of these kinds of big conflicts makes people do questionable shit. Yeah,
exactly.
Stu continues, though between them and the Emerald Chain, there's 2 green-hued empires that'd be the villains in this era. Yeah?
Yeah.
Technobabble for the win. It was nice they actually let more of the bridge crew contribute there. I feel like, we got a little more.
Look, I'm Rayner.
Yeah, I know. Matt's got a clothespin on the top of his ear.
I'm Rayner.
Yeah, I got you.
Sorry. I'm getting punchy.
I know. I looked up. I swear to God, I looked up and I saw the clothespin on your ear, and I thought, Matt's about to fall asleep.
I was doing it like as a way of keeping myself up. I was like pinching myself with clothespins.
Well, no, you just get silly as shit when you get sleepy.
I do.
Let's see. Does Culber and Tilly have two scenes together? Does Culber and Tilly having two scenes together count as a B story? I mean, it's a thread.
Yeah.
It's a thread in a season tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they show that picture of the progenitor, I'm like, what's this bald changeling got to do with all this?
I thought the exact same thing.
You know, the lady that played that progenitor played the female changeling on DS9.
Oh, really? I recognized her in this image, in this episode.
Yeah.
I was like, why are they showing the changeling from DS9? That's funny. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Because I definitely thought, like, I didn't even get to, oh, that's the progenitor. I was like, why are they showing the changeling?
Yeah. Stu says, good episode that surprised me with where it went several times, though I would not have put it past them for L'ak to be killed by that somewhat contrived judo throw into broken glass. Glad they didn't go there, and the Breen stuff is interesting. They're not just a weird ripoff of Princess Leia's bounty hunter disguise anymore. I knew I'd seen that somewhere. Raynor got to lead too, which I shouldn't have to single out given his supposed veteran status, but I'll take it. Thank you, Stu.
Thank you, Stu. Always a delight to hear your messages.
It is a delight, though I will say, kill your darlings. I'm getting raspy here. Christ.
Wow. Oh, man. Yeah. And Stu's like, well, you getting tired of reading my message? Well, you took a chance to read that whole plaque on the wall. Come on. Priorities, Dave. I'm sleepy.
What is this version of Stu that you're doing? Is that like, it sounds like Brooklyn Grand Nagus or something.
Brooklyn Grand Nagus. That was my nickname.
Get out of here!
I'm walking here. All right.
You read that whole message, Quark.
I love that Wallace Shawn got to be the Grand Nagus. Just great. It's just great. Oh man.
Yeah.
What a show. That really, I mean, it is still my favorite Star Trek.
If I didn't see him playing the Nagus, I would have thought it inconceivable.
Very nice. Very nice.
And my nipples got hard on that.
Ooh. You want a peanut?
No, I don't.
Joel untrue.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Roberson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.